and one was getting 2%, and one was getting 5% and 4%. And while I would win most, they took so many votes away from me.
All right, let's talk more about this with Republican strategist Brian Morgenstern and political columnist Ellis Henican. All right, good to see you both. Interesting food for thought here. So, Brian, should this be under consideration, changing the rules because the field was so big initially?
No, of course not. What makes sense is that the party's nominee should become that way through consensus, and you have to get the majority of delegates. That happens with a winnowing of candidates. Second choices matter. Third choices matter when these things happen. But of course, when the rules don't suit the Donald, those are the ones that are unfair. So this isn't exactly surprising, but in most people's view, he's wrong on this.
Ellis.
It's actually the opposite. I mean, he's not going to get what he wants because all the rules are going to be changed to hurt Donald, not to help him. I mean, clearly the establishment of the party doesn't want him to be the nominee, and they're already scheming to manipulate the rules and do a bunch of other Sharpie stuff to deny Donald the nomination. So, yeah, he's not going to get that.
So, Brian, might it be – oh, go ahead. You going to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's no scheming or anything. The RNC's been very transparent.
One direction, right? Not the other.
Well, look, Reince has been out there and saying rightly that every convention is governed by its own rules, by its own rules committee that sets them going into it. But with regard to delegates, there's been this number of delegates for the entire race. This isn't a new thing. But the convention rules will be open and on national television. They'll have to approve them. It's not going to be secret. And Trump will have just as good a chance of negotiating with delegates to support him on the second ballot or third ballot if there are subsequent votes as every other candidate. And if he's the art of the deal author and he's the real deal maker, then he should have a better chance of winning the nomination.
Yeah, but Ryan, listen, Brian, you know the reality here, right? I mean, these Sharpies, these Ben Ginsberg and these other Washington lawyers, they're already trying to figure out how to manipulate the system with only one purpose in mind: denying Donald the nomination. That's just a fact, isn't it?
But he look, every person who's involved in this is a human with interests, and Trump is involved just as everybody else is. He's going to try to stack the committee with his own supporters as well, just as Cruz will, just as Kasich will. So, framing it as the scheming Sharpies, I think is not right, because it's an adversarial process that's fair to everybody.
Okay,
fair enough, but it's not fair, though. Come on.
What part is not fair?
Well, listen, I mean, the reality that we're facing right now is there's a judgment being made in Washington by some of Brian's very good friends, I know. Would it be more damaging to try to deny the nomination to the obvious and clear front runner and have all his people?
Even if he doesn't get 1237?
Yeah, if he gets 1,100 or 1,000, well, he's still the clear front runner. There's obviously damage if you deny him the nomination. Or would it be worse to give him the nomination?
But if the rules say you've got to have 1237 and you've got 1,200, you've got 1,500, just because you have more than the rest, you're saying it would not be necessarily bending the rules if he were allowed to win the nomination?
No, you make a perfectly good mathematical argument, but you know what? There are all these decent Americans who went out and voted in good faith in this system, led Donald Trump to being the easy and clear front runner. And you're going to look in their eyes and you're going to say, oh, no, your votes didn't count. We people in Washington have a better idea than all of you all who put him in first place?
Spoken like someone who wants Trump to be the nominee so that his party
Brian,
can win.
Then, I mean, seriously, what are those conversations then within the RNC? Maybe, we're hearing publicly what Reince Priebus is saying, but in private, what are these conversations about that kind of scenario? If he's the front runner, but he doesn't necessarily, or maybe, he is hundreds of votes, if not a handful of votes away from 1237. What is the RNC preparing for, whether it's the establishment, likes him or not, or picks another candidate or not? What is the preparation that's taking place behind closed doors? What do you know?
I think the preparation is each campaign is trying to, choose delegates who are going to represent their interests, and then trying to get those delegates on the Rules Committee to try to create a favorable environment for their candidate. I don't think it's the RNC scheming. I think this is an adversarial process where all the candidates are trying to push their guys into the positions of power so that they can have, the leverage come convention time. It's not really the RNC orchestrating stuff so much as it is the campaigns competing with one another.
I'm not seeing the skepticism being erased from Ellis's face.
It's
Brian,
a big
if only you could
mess.
see him.
It's a big mess. That's what it's going to be.
Okay.
And yes, I am enjoying it. Yes, I am enjoying it.
It's all very fascinating. All right, Ellis, Henican, Brian Morgenstern, always good to see you. Thanks so much.